Alright, so this is for the week of March 14th through the 18th, and this week we're planting beds, turning over new plots, filling more orders, doing a lot more nursery work, planting up more successions in the nursery, and we are putting out some polytunnels. We've got all kinds of stuff going on, so here we go. Okay, so at this plot, we are March 14th, and at this plot we have a bunch of this kale survived really well in the winter. In fact, it survived better than the stuff I put in the greenhouse, which is really interesting. However, I was harvesting the stuff in the greenhouse more, but this wintered over very well. And at this plot, we tarped it for the winter, so you can see how well the beds are weed-free. All right, well, this time of year we're also doing a lot of turning beds over. We're turning over overwintered crops and reseeding them. So this bed here, this spinach, I'm going to turn over using my no-till method. I'm going to stirrup hoe it out, shank it at the base, put in some new compost and some organic fertilizer, run my tilther in there, prep the bed and replant them. Probably going to do both of these beds, both these spinach beds. They were cut all winter, had probably 4 cuts out of each one, and just did their final cut a couple days ago. Now we're going to turn them over and put something else in there. So that's also what's happening a lot this week. So right now we're also harvesting a lot of our overwintered stuff, which we're doing a lot of red Russian kale and spinach. And Mark right now is harvesting some. You'll even notice in the field here, I've got crop that was overwintered. So red Russian kale and spinach do very well overwintered. We can plant them in the first week of October, and they basically just grow a little bit, and then they don't grow much in the winter, but as soon as it starts to get warm, like even in February, they really grow well, because we had them under the tunnels. We've now taken the tunnels off intentionally to slow them down so they don't get so big, and that way we kind of almost have like a loaded rifle of crops that are ready to go. So it's a huge marketing advantage for us. I mean, we've got the heat island effect in the city, and the fact that we're close to markets. We can have some product like the spinach and red Russian kale just pumping right now. Mid-March, we've got hundreds of pounds of product coming off the field on such a small farm, so it's a really good thing. We are also in the middle of coming to plots and covering them up with tarps. So just put down a tarp that covered up about 9 beds on this site, and I'll leave that for a few weeks, come back and then prepare those beds, and hopefully all those weeds that are under there will be dead and all the new ones that are in there will be germinated. So we're doing that a lot at the beginning of the season here. All right, so we're also getting a new plot into production this year. We've actually had this whole plot for 6 years, and the landowner has asked us to expand it and take more of her lawn, so we were happy to oblige. We put the tarp on here in the summer last year and let it sit all winter. I just pulled it off and then moved it over to the other segment to start creating stale seed beds over there, and now we'll get the tiller in here and start turning this puppy over. So this is what's happening in the greenhouse now. What we've done is I was actually going to build a raised bed here, and I'm still going to, but we didn't have time because the tomatoes that we started in January needed to go in, so we did sort of an impromptu way of getting them in the ground. Is we just got a bunch of old pots from a landscaping friend of ours and filled them with soil, and in a way it's sort of a passive way of kind of staying ahead of the game, because we're going to build this bed eventually this season, and then when we build it, we'll just dump all that soil into it. So the soil, a lot of the soil that we're going to put there is already there in a way, so that's been our strategy. So it's a new thing we're trying. Tomatoes in pots. We've never done this before, but we'll see how it goes, and you'll get updates throughout the year. All right. So on our farm, since we can't have a centralized big pile of compost because we have multiple locations, we'll fill up containers like this where I buy my compost from, and even the stuff that we make, and then we'll shuttle it into various sites so that I've got it all contained and it's not in a pile. It's easier to manage, it's easier to move around. That's one thing that we do that's sort of a multi-locational solution to meet a challenge that we have, and that we can't have a centralized pile. Something else I'm doing on, I'd say, a bi-weekly basis, twice a week, is I'm hand watering. areas that I'm going to cover in poly low tunnels, because I don't have, we don't run the irrigation this time of year because we still get below freezing at some nights. So I got to pull the tunnels off and hand water them and then pull the tunnels back on. And so we're doing that once a week, sometimes twice a week. We got to hand water the greenhouses too because we can't run the irrigation yet too much. It'll freeze if we do. So I usually do a spray like this to reach the back so I don't have to move much. And then the closer I get, I'll put on a wand like that to water the ground close to me. So today, on the last day of the week, I've got some wood chips coming. I use a lot of chips on my property. Just, it's nice to walk on and instead of having lawn or mud. So I saw some city guys pruning some trees yesterday, and I went over them and just asked, hey, where are you going to take those chips? They usually take them to the city refuse site, which takes them an extra hour to go and do. So if you can say to them, hey, I live right around the corner, would you like to drop them at my place? They're very happy to oblige because it's just easier for them. So got a big load of chips dumping in here. We're going to spread around on some of the other areas that we need more chips on our site. All right, so that pretty much wraps up our week. We're Friday today. For this day, we're taking a bunch of stuff to the dump, actually. I've got to get rid of a bunch of stuff. You know, sometimes farms accumulate old wood and things like this. So it's all recyclable. I'll go into the city compost pile. They shred it down. So we're doing that today. We increased our sales, which is typical for this time of year. We start to go up as the season gets warmer. People are starting to go to restaurants more. We're moving more volume there. And we've also decided what we're going to do with our neighbor's plot. So we will be farming this year. We're going to tear out this fence. And we've actually talked to the neighbors of this house here who are going to let us cut down this tree, which is great because it's a big evergreen tree and it's going to be causing consistent shade if we don't remove it. So I've hired my neighbor across the street to cut it down for me. He's going to chip it up, and I've also agreed to pay to put some cedar bushes into my neighbor's property there in exchange for cutting that tree down. So all said and done, it's going to cost me about $350 to cut that tree down and then put some cedar bushes in here so they can have some privacy. So it's kind of these negotiations that you find with your neighbors to make win-win situations for everybody. So that's what's happening on the farm this week. I hope you found that useful. Please hit the subscribe button right now if you want to see more videos like this. Like and share them with your friends.